welcome to tnSportsChat presented by Lehigh Valley Health Network. I'm Patrick Matsinko. This is Emmett McCall. It's a TGIF edition this week. We're coming to you on Friday. Schedule's got
Changing
a little...
it up.
Yeah. It's casual Friday, as you can see.
It's Pocono weekend, as you can see. Somebody's all excited about Pocono race this week,
which is pretty rad. And if you're ever willing to supply me with,
throwback shirts,
vintage NASCAR stuff,
yes.
I'm more than willing to take it. So Pocono's this weekend. But other big news of the week, I guess, just in terms of, the direct impact it has on us, schools in the area, was the PIAA Equity Summit that was held earlier this week out in State College.
Got a lot of talk, a lot of attention focused on it.
Yeah, and I think you look, it's always a topic of conversation. Public-private schools, boundary, non-boundary schools, they have different names depending on, maybe kind of just, who you're having the conversation with, sort of stuff like that. But big, I guess, kind of the whole the discussion centered on that sort of disproportionate amount of, state championships, football, basketball. I know it was centered around,
those two sports.
Because,
the numbers say there's 700 school districts that belong to, or 700 schools that belong to the PIAA. Of that group of 700, only 16% are the non-boundary schools, the Catholic, the private, the charter schools, right? So that's the number, and the problems, the public school problems with it are mainly in football and basketball because it's just a disproportionate number of championships. I think the number was for boys basketball was the major outlier. 65% of the team championships in the last 10 years have gone to the non-boundary schools. Girls basketball is a little less. It was the low 60s. Football, it was 50%. It was an even split over the last 10 years. But when you're talking only 16% of the schools winning 60 and 50% of the championships. Whereas the other sports, we had some comments on our story online. Why didn't they talk about field hockey? What about the other sports? I'm sure we weren't at the meeting, but I'm sure it was brought up. But basically, those sports and the championships are a little more proportionate. Private boundary schools are winning 10 to 20% of those championships, and since they make up 16% of the schools, that's about what you would expect it to be.
Yeah, and you think about, just sort of, again, like kind of just the huge, kind of difference that we're seeing and it comes up every year, when we sit down and we look at these state playoff brackets, and it's something that it's just kind of become the norm in a lot of ways, where when you look at who's in, and Pittsburgh Central Catholic and Newman Goretti and all these teams, it's just kind of it's understood that those teams
They're
are going to
powerhouses.
And that's just it's kind of become the norm, but again, it's not really it's not something that's accepted, obviously.
Right.
So
150 public school districts in Pennsylvania sent representatives to this meeting. It was out in Indiana Tuesday of this week. Kyle Spots of Lehigh, Brian Geist of Northern Lehigh were the two local athletic directors that were part of this group. You talked to Kyle. It's been reported all over kind of what happened at the meeting. I don't think anybody wants what they're calling the nuclear option, where the schools just break away and form their own. Financially, that would be a huge stress on.
Just
just get officials, insurance, get things set up and run. So I don't think anybody wants that. What they are trying to do, the PIAA has made some changes in the last year. They put in more restrictions on transfers, on
which
people coming in for playoffs only. They're doing things like that.
Which is something we saw last year too. I mean, where there was there
were
was something
three really huge instances of kids transferring schools during the season, late in the season, and
before a state playoff game. Yeah, I mean,
right. A girls basketball player at Newman Goretti, football player. What was it? Bishop
the team that played Palisades.
And Harrisburg to Central Dauphin to Harrisburg. Micah Parsons, the big Penn State recruit, did it. Those three all gained huge attention because they were star players and they came in late in the season and helped teams win playoffs championships.
And that's the stuff that, I don't know, maybe you can kind of say has sort of drawn the ire of...
Right, I think that kind of took it to a new level, but at the same time the public schools are claiming at this meeting that it's not just about the transfers. That kind of was the boiling point, but they're more interested in just the fair playing field, and they suggested at this meeting that they would like a separate class for the non-boundary schools. There are a couple of options. One was going back to 4 classes for the public schools and creating
a small, large for these
5th and 6th class for the private schools. There was also one where they keep the 6 classes for the public schools and add a 7th class for the non-boundary schools. So there are the options that were discussed. Part of it still has to go into the legislature because there is a rule passed that would have to be kind of tweaked a little to get this to come into place, where you can separate the schools. So that's what they're working on. I think this was a first step. They got some good positive info they shared and came up with some suggestions, and now it's the state legislator and the legislation and PIAA have to kind of look at it and see if they are going to make any more changes.
And that's, again, I think this was a way to kind of keep the discussion, make it sort of like an ongoing discussion, and that way they can, sort of voice concerns, opinions, maybe suggestions, different ways of potentially going about tweaking it. Again, it's nothing, and I talked to Kyle Spots, and he had said, and you can obviously just in thinking about sort of all the variables here, nothing drastic was going to come out of one meeting, but it's a way to at least kind of float out some ideas and just sort of start a discussion, continue a discussion about a lot of this.
Right. And it's the kind of thing that's been going on for 30, 40 years since the PIAA was formed, and the old PCIAA was kind of incorporated in with the Catholic and private schools coming into the PIAA. You've always had this discussion, getting kids from a larger area. Is it fair? Is it unfair? But I think it kind of reached a boiling point in the last decade, especially with the inclusion of the Philadelphia area schools into the PIAA, because you have, and also in that time frame, you've had a growth in charter schools. So I mean, that's kind of, I think, taken the problems to a new level. The Philadelphia area, Catholic schools, public schools, it seems like looking from the outside that they might not be as hard on transfers and on kids switching schools and going to schools that are pretty far outside where the building is located as schools from the rest of the state. And they're winning lots of championships, the District 12 Philly schools. So.
And Western PA, I mean, you have, just like we kind of talked about, and I know Western PA administrators, I think, kind of, sort of ran this meeting and did a lot just out there on Tuesday, but that's kind of where we are with that coming out of this meeting. And again,
there's going to be more news happening on this front. And My thought is that they hoped the 2019 playoff season already to have this take effect. My thought is this isn't going to happen quickly. If it happens at all, it's going to be a process.
Oh, yeah.
And this was step one.
It was, and I think just to kind of see how this would go, sort of get a feel, and maybe again in time, depending on how things play out, if there is no progress, maybe there is a different tactic that is used in the future.
Right.
If the results aren't there going forward, but again, step one, and this is just sort of the beginning, obviously. Another thing that we kind of had this week that was interesting and cool and sort of something that we had talked about a few years ago was Marion entering into a co-op with Schuylkill Haven for this upcoming season for wrestling, which is...
Marion's never had, I don't think in the years that Marion's been in existence, they've ever had a wrestling program. Talked about it, like you said, a few years ago. I know Pottsville was mentioned at one point, going in a co-op with them, but just got word this week that it will be Schuylkill Haven and Marion.
Yeah, I had a chance to talk to Athletic Director Stan DeCosti, just kind of about sort of how things came about. It was just recently approved at PIAA Board of Directors meeting, and I think something that they're just really excited about. I know he said it's still in the infant stages,
right?
But it could be a great opportunity just to kind of see how things go, and it's a great opportunity for the kids, for the sport, for Haven. I mean, it's just, hopefully it is really a win-win.
Correct. We don't know. Stan didn't have any idea at the time if they were going to have a dozen, boys go out for wrestling,
sure,
or a couple. But either way, it gives the students at Marion now who wrestled when they were younger, or wanted to get into wrestling and Marion didn't have a program, gives them a chance now to wrestle as part of this Schuylkill Haven team.
Yeah,
I think you talked to Stan as far as the local school districts. They checked with a couple. He just wasn't going to work out. Yeah. Right. So now it is. And the thing with the PIAA is when you go in a co-op like that, it could affect the class
which
you
is
wrestle.
Why, yeah.
Right. If you're in wrestling, it's just the two classes, AA, AAA.
Yeah.
If you're a AA school,
and you take on
Marion's, and you're not just taking two kids.
No, you're
get added to your enrollment.
Yeah.
It's the whole enrollment, or at least a percentage of it. I don't know how the PIAA works that, but there's a chance that you take 2 or 3 wrestles for Marion on your team, and all of a sudden you're AAA instead of AA.
Exactly.
So that's why schools just can't go in and say, yeah, no problem.
Sure.
So,
which again brings us back to boundary, non-boundary in a lot of ways.
Exactly.
And
yes.
why when you have some of these private schools, like a Bethlehem Catholic that was AA for so many years, and pulling kids from so many different areas, yet competing at a AA level and shutting schools out, and so
part of the problem.
Yeah, it was. But again, so this is something that is just kind of getting going,
and that will start for this wrestling season, right?
Yes. So that'll be fun. Hopefully, we're still a ways off from that, but definitely, I guess, as someone who kind of is invested in wrestling during the winter,
You're a wrestling geek.
looking forward to that. That already shapes up to maybe be a great column once we get to that point.
Sounds like a plan.
So but also recently we had Palmerton's Cole Serfass competing, and
that was pretty cool.
That was. Yeah, and I think he set a record.
Yeah,
I mean, that was
he competed at a home run derby at the Cal Ripken event, and Cal Ripken is kind of like a Little League Connie Mack organization for youth baseball, kind of different age groups and stuff, but it's basically another Little League, but it's run Cal Ripken Jr., famous Baltimore Oriole, playing career he had, and he's kind of organized this league, and it's run all over the country. They have their home base down in Maryland, and they had a tournament, 25-team tournament, teams from Canada and the Philippines. I think the story said brought them down there. And of all these 25 teams competing, they had a home run derby between the players on the team, and Cole Serfass from Palmerton was the winner of that.
Yeah, he represented the Lehigh Valley Rising Stars travel team, and it was the 12 and under Blue Crab Skills Home Run Derby competition. He set a record. He amassed 68 points, winning the event, which is, I mean, it's pretty awesome. And again, just to think about that experience.
5 points, you get like a minute and a half. It's kind of fashioned like the Major League Home Run Derby we just saw during the All-Star break. You get a certain amount of time. Every ball you hit out counts for certain points. The little difference from this is it's just not all home runs. You hit the ball to the warning track, you get so many points like that, and you add up the points, and he hit 68 points. One thing I saw in the story we ran that I was even more impressed with than winning the home run title is it said during his league season this year, in 35 games, he has 27 homers in 35 league games. So obviously he's just not saving it up for the home run derby. He's
I think they need to push the
balls
fences
all
back.
over.
But that's
congratulations to Cole. Nice achievement.
Yeah, and again, just awesome opportunity. And the Rising Stars also won the 12 and under division of the tournament.
Went undefeated.
8-0. Yeah. So congratulations to that whole program. And again, and I think did we save the best for last?
Well, before we get into the best for last, we talked about baseball. Just a quick mention. The youth baseball scene around here, nothing has changed since last week because it's just rained every single day since I think we had our last show.
Every day.
Jim Thorpe is still in the Connie Mack state playoffs. They've only got one game in. I think they've been rained out 4 or 5 times in a row. They're scheduled to play tonight. Doesn't look very promising at the moment, but it's a double elimination tournament. They're lost their opener, so they've got they're going to be playing a lot of games in a short amount of time, but they're still alive in that. Panther Valley Little League tournament is coming down in the home stretch. Saturday, the 11 and 12 championship game. Anthracite just found out their opponent last night. It's going to be Franklin Township. They're playing up in Tresco at the Tri-County Field, and that's 11 o'clock Saturday morning. And in the 9 and 10, Franklin Township is undefeated. They're scheduled to play at 6 o'clock tonight against Tamaqua. If they win, they'll win the 9 and 10 tournament.
So that hopefully we can kind of get all of that in finally,
wrap up summer
put
baseball.
A bow on that, I guess. And I'm sure too, it's just to have it drawn out as much as it has been is.
I'm sure the coaches and players are anxious, and the parents, because a lot of these tournaments start June, July, go through the whole thing. So you got fall sports coming up in a couple of weeks. You got school starting in a month. So a lot of parents wait to try to take their vacation times if they're taking one in August.
Yeah.
And we're bordering on getting into August.
Going to be there next week. Yeah. So hopefully the weather holds out and they're able to get these games in. And hopefully they do well. Hopefully everything goes well, and we'll be able to come back next week and recap.
Hopefully championships games have been played. Yes. And now for the thing you've been waiting for, looking forward to since the first week of June when it happened earlier.
So we get round 2 of NASCAR at Pocono this weekend, which is pretty rad.
Pat's pretty much. Pat loves all sports, but this might be his favorite.
It's a ton of fun. Tonight there's the ARCA race. That'll be at 4 o'clock, and then there is no Monster Energy NASCAR stuff on track today.
Kind of switched it around most of the time. Friday was the qualifying day.
Yeah.
I think last year for one of the races they moved it to Saturday.
Yeah.
Or did they do Sunday morning?
Which was a little bit of an experiment. That's I don't know that people. I mean, one way or the other. I think you kind of try to do that and give people bang for their buck and do it all in a day.
Now this year they switced it.
It'll be Saturday.
Qualifying. Yes.
But tonight, though, from 6 to 9, they are still doing the Fan Fest and the infield block party, which...
We got reports that went over really well last year when they did it for the first time.
Yeah, and I think that's it's a neat sort of informal way to kind of allow drivers and fans to interact. I think just even like the feedback from the drivers was that they really liked it because it just sort of kind of let everybody sort of let loose a little bit, have fun, interact, and the more, I don't know, I think the more you can have those types of experiences, it's cool too, because it builds those kind of relationships, I think, which is what they're trying to do with younger fans, just to kind of bring more people in, and if that's a way that people can interact and just sort of get to meet and greet, favorite drivers, experience it. It's definitely a cool thing. So that'll be 6 to 9
If you're watching
tonight.
this show before 6 o'clock tonight, if you're watching us,
Go
you
there.
can still get up there after our podcast.
But please watch this first. Before you go there. Then tomorrow. So last time they had the Xfinity Series. This year, this month, they have the Truck Series. So that race will be tomorrow, which will be at 1 o'clock. So that'll be 1 o'clock. It's possible. And then at 4:10 is roughly when qualifying will be tomorrow. So, and there will be other on-track activity. There's practice for NASCAR at 9 o'clock. So if you want to get up there early, you can get started early tomorrow and then just kind of stay and still make it a day, I think, getting up there for practice and the truck race.
Nice. Saturday, Sunday, we're finally supposed to get some nice weather.
And they've had brutal weather there in the past. Where we had the one year where IndyCar and both NASCAR, I think, were all pushed until Monday, which it can happen. Hopefully it doesn't. And then on Sunday, the race will be at 2:30. So a little bit different. Driver introductions are at like 1:50. So that'll be Sunday at 2:30.
You'll be up there. Brad Hurley will be up there for the Times News. We'll have stories in Monday's paper on the Sunday race.
Yeah, so that'll be pretty cool. So that's this weekend at Pocono, and next week we'll hopefully have a full recap of our local baseball, and then we're not too far away from media days.
The following week, we have football media days for some of the Lehigh Valley is running their first ever media day for football. I think 33 schools are invited to that. The Schuylkill League is continuing its tradition of our Schuylkill County, I should say, continuing its tradition of bringing football pro coaches and players up there. That's coming up in first 2 weeks of August. So just around the corner. The heat and conditioning thing that the PIAA now runs for football is August 8th, 9th, and 10th, I believe,
so
something like that.
Week and a half.
So it's just around the corner.
And then again, opening night is August 24th, which is
2 games in August this year of the high school football season.
Did you say we'll have 6 in by the end of September?
Right.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
That's more than half. That's more than half the season.
That is more than half.
But so that's all kind of what's on tap, I guess. But for now, I think that kind of wraps up everything for this week. And the other thing too is, I guess, we kind of definitely welcome feedback and comments and everything like that. And especially too with the PIAA Equity Summit and all of that. Certainly don't want. I know it's the football, basketball stuff that gets a lot of the play, but definitely know that the field hockey, the soccer, all the other sports certainly, are just as meaningful. I know it's basketball, football, that gets the,
and they are impacted. The impact is just not as much as the football and basketball, and I think that's why the athletic directors and administrators that were there kind of focused on those 2 sports, but. Yeah.
But so, and again, just feedback and just, again, I think we'll see where that goes, and feedback across the board is going to be interesting.
On our Facebook, on our email, tnsports@tnonline.com for our email address. Can comment on our Facebook page, on the stories that appear on our website. So just feel free.
And on YouTube, which is where these videos go as well. But that's all for this week. Thanks again for tuning in. For Emmett McCall, I'm Patrick Matsinko. That was TN Sports Chat presented by Lehigh Valley Health Network.